So, yeah, that's definitely an interesting direction that they took. I guess I too was counted amongst the rank of people who thought the new patch is going to be set in High Middle Ages, in High Medieval China. But looks like we're going back in time, and it's going to be mostly focused on the Three Kingdoms period instead. Before we begin, a quick round of introductions. My name is Jack. I'm a history buff specializing in Chinese history, and a lot of my works covers Chinese history related topics. I will first go over the various release notes and then go over a brief overview of each of the five civilizations and their unique units and playing style. After that is done, I will dive deeper into authenticity and the historical accuracy of the various units that's introduced this patch. Hopefully, it's going to flavor your enjoyment in the upcoming release. So, what is interesting is that it looks like the new patch will be called the Three Kingdoms, and the campaign will be mostly focused during the late antiquity period, around the time of the fall of the Han Dynasty, and covered the struggles of the three main kingdoms that survived during this period. We are also getting two other civilizations that's set during the High Middle Ages. Here are the five new civilizations that we will be getting. From the Three Kingdoms period, we will be getting the kingdom of Wei, Shu, and Wu. And for the medieval period, we will be getting the kingdom of the Khitans, as well as that of the Jurchens. The first part of what I cover is probably going to be overlapped with a lot of other content creator that covers Age of Empires too, especially have early access to this patch. However, though, I encourage you to stay for the historical dive of these units. Although there might be more prolific content creators, not many of them are able to do what I do in terms of the depth covered regarding to Chinese history itself. So if you're here interested in some tangential learning, stay for the history because it will be very interesting. Perhaps treat it like a very refreshing chaser after a very strong drink. Before we dive into detail, some quick notes about some of the new units that's going to be shared across multiple civilizations. Fire Lancer will now be shared amongst many Chinese civilizations, along with the Koreans and the Vietnamese. Rocket cards will be shared between the Chinese and the Korean civilizations. And all of the Three Kingdoms factions will now, instead of having gunpowder units, have stand-ins, pretty much serve that exact same function. And now let's do a breakdown of the factions. A lot of the video snippets that I will be showing will directly be from Spirit of the Law's channel. Not only is his channel one that I watch rather religiously, but it's one that I've been following for over 10 years now. I will actually analyze the two medieval factions before I do the classical Three Kingdom one. We will begin with the Jurchen faction, which is definitely confirmed for this patch. Now, this is actually one civilization that I got pretty much all of the predictions right, and I am rather happy about. Their unique unit, as I predicted, would be the Iron Pagoda Cavalry, which is going to be a heavy cataphract. And it is going to be special because these lines of new civilizations all do not have the classic knight line. So they all have interesting ways to kind of compensate for that. The Iron Pagoda is actually going to be an interesting unit because, like the Shirvanshah Riders, they're actually able to just shrug off one incoming blow from the enemy. I think in the absence of the classic knight line, they provide a very interesting path for heavy cavalry development. Their other special unit is also one that I kind of guessed correct, which is that they're going to have a grenadier unit that slings bombs. The Jurchen Civilization look like one that is going to be focused on both heavy cavalry as well as siege and some proto gunpowder units. These grenadiers don't really have the best accuracy at all, but they're able to quickly saturate an area and also cause splash damage. So there might be a lot of interesting, tricky use for them in the hand of a right player. The next civilization is going to be the Khitans. Like with many commentators and Redditors, I sort of thought the Tangus are going to be included because of the distinctive architectural set and also because of the camel catapults. But it is nice to see that the Khitans represented here as well. What is more interesting is the fact that in comparison to the Jurchen and the playing style that civilization brings, the Khitans actually feels very different in terms of playing style. By contrast, instead of a very heavy cavalry focused civilization and one that is very focused on siege, the Khitans actually bring up an unprecedented level of offensive power that is well paired with their mobility. Their first unique unit is called the Liao Dao, which historically describes a kind of large two-handed horse choppers that is associated with the Liao dynasty that is run by the Khitans. Now, these two-handed horse choppers are huge, and the Liao and the Song dynasty both developed massive choppers such as these in order to cut through armor and mostly to chop up armored horses of the opposing enemies. In this game, it is interesting to see them translated as a unit that not only is able to deal high damage, but then have a lingering bleed effect, continue to affect the unit they have just damaged. Their second unique unit is called the Mounted Trebuchet, and is sort of based on the Tangut Poshi army, which had traction trebuchet that are mounted on top of backtrain camels and served as impromptu horse artillery that is able to be very nimbly deployed on the field. Now, these versions that are used by the Khitans will be able to deal damage from afar, but also cast a lingering fire effect in the area that their projectiles have just hit. The combination of these two unique units, along with the Khitan's discount for good trash unit, and especially light cavalry, really gives the faction an edge in the ability to just show up, literally be supplemented by a bunch of fast riding artillery that's able to quickly deploy, saturate an area like a bunch of bombards, and still leaves lingering damage in that area. On my part, I would be really curious to see how the fast siege weapons will be implemented and used by the player base. And now let's move on to the Three Kingdom civilizations. The first of the three kingdoms that we're introduced is going to be Shu of Liu Bei. Historically, the Shu Kingdom is located in what is today's Sichuan province. It's a very mountainous region. It's very lush and uneven terrain. Because of these natural barriers and naturally fortified mountain passes, I guess the devs leaned this civilization into a very archer-focused one, and one with excellent siege equipment as well. I think they're designed to be excellent turtles. Their first unique unit, the War Chariot, is kind of a hybrid unit. A very interesting cross between a scorpion and also a chokunu. They're designed to either rapidly pummel one single enemy or spray out their damage. It should also be mentioned that the Shu's special tech, Bolt Magazine, really increases the already high volume of fire the War Chariot is able to shoot out. What's more, the Archer line and also their Lotron, which is a siege ship, are able to fire more projectiles as well because of this upgrade. These upgrades really makes Shu as a civilization very excellent in terms of laying down barrage fire, essentially converting all sorts of their own archer units into mini chokunus. What's kind of great about this focus is that their other unique units really enhances this playing style. Their other unique unit is actually a historically based unit that is called White Feather Guards. White Feather Guards are an elite, historically recorded Shu unit formation that the Chancellor Zhuge Liang actually mentioned in his missives. And if you look at the bonus for these White Feather Guards, the notes actually mentions that any enemy unit that is hit by it will be slowed down. What's more, an additional bonus is that any spearman units that's beside the White Feather Guard and any White Feather Guards that's beside any spearman unit will mutually boost each other's HP so that they become much bulkier standing next to each other. I think this is a really elegant fusion of playing style, which maximizes the front line's resistance and to act as a trap as well as a dense meat shield, whereas the archers in the back tear the enemy to pieces with multiple projectiles. As an interesting aside, the Chancellor of Shu that I just mentioned, Zhuge Liang, is actually the figure that is attributed to have invented the repeating crossbow, which the Chinese civilization is known for in Age of Empires 2. The old rendering of the unit, which is rendered in an archaic fashion, called the Chokunu, whereas in Age of Empires 4, it is changed more to the current reading of its name as Zhugenu. So they both mean the same thing, and they're referring to the same guy, who is the Chancellor of Shu. In a somewhat appropriate fashion, that his faction is the one where all the archers now are able to turn into mini Chokunu. Ah, he would be so proud. The next Three Kingdoms faction that I'm going to go over is Wei. And Wei is going to be an interesting one in terms of playing style compared to the more defensive oriented Shu. Whereas Shu has an element that requires the enemy to come to them and thus be trapped by their wet feather guards and then suffer under the barrage of waiting arrows. Wei is more aggressive and mobile in its focus. It is definitely the cavalry oriented faction, which is historically rather accurate. During this time, Wei is probably the strongest of the three kingdoms, and it's helmed by Cao Cao, who managed to unite all of northern China under his banner. Just for reference sakes, northern China during this period was where the most dangerous warlords were, and he was able to crush almost all of them and consolidate all of northern China under his swing. And it was a very tall order as well. In order to unite all of northern China under his banner, he had to fight over enemies who are, at least on paper, much stronger than he is, and then come out on top. Both of Wei's unique units sort of exemplifies this very aggressive playing style. One is a very mobile unit called the Xianbei Raider that specializes in long-range burst fire that's able to suddenly show up, lay down a large amount of fire, and then pull out. And another is almost like a vampiric cavalry called Tiger Cavalry that is able to aggressively come in, and whatever enemies that it defeats is able to add to its overall health pool, as well as damage. What is insane is the fact that after killing 4 enemies, that the cavalry is able to have 40 additional health, along with +4 in damage. Both units actually do have a strong historical basis. Cao Cao was known as an excellent cavalry commander, and often during his feuds with other warlords across northern China, at the time when he was still proving himself, a lot of the times in the northern frontiers, the various steppe tribesmen would act up and try to rebel against his rule. Cao Cao actually proved to be a very competent queller of such rebellions. And whenever he defeated such rival tribesmen, he would actually incorporate them into his already strong cavalry forces and have them augment his strength. On an elite level, Cao Cao also loved his crack cavalry as well, including 2 special units of elite cavalry called the Tiger Cavalry and the Leopard Cavalry. Both of them were extremely well equipped, at the same time well armored, and come with a variety of assortment of weapons and ammunition. A nice thing to appreciate about the design of this faction is the fact that a lot of productivity is automated, and you get villagers simply for researching the basic economic bonuses. The rest is designed to just bulk up your flood of cavalry that you're able to inflict on the opponent. And it makes the faction very dangerous in that they can get ready very fast and then come at you with cavalry that can just overwhelm and overmatch you. The last of the three kingdom civilization will be the kingdom of Wu. Historically speaking, the kingdom occupied a coastal area of eastern China in what is today's Zhejiang and Fujian regions. The kingdom occupied the downstream regions of the Yangtze River and the various key lakes and canals in the area that makes them traverse very freely in the area as if the waterways were their highway. And it's very appropriate that the devs made the Wu Kingdom into a naval superpower, as well as one that is good with infantry, and although it did not say this in the faction summary, also a strong siege civilization as well. The Wu infantry were especially strong in that they're able to regenerate a lot of their health automatically. Every single time they build a military production building, or that of a dock, they're able to get a solid refund of 65 food, which elegantly rolls back into producing tons of new infantry units as well. In terms of their new unique units, Wu actually has an interesting infantry unit that is very strong against archers and at pursuing archers as well. That the unit is able to increase its speed and damage as it reaches certain damage thresholds, essentially turning into sort of a berserker unit. But when that threshold is reached, it will also suddenly drop a bunch of his armor as well. So it is kind of contingent on being able to time closing in on the enemy archers correctly, and then not relenting until all the archers are cut down. Its second unique unit, the Fire Archer, is sort of a special unit and also has two firing modes that it's able to either rapidly fire against enemy units, or when it shifts to fire against buildings, shift to a much longer firing mode that has a very respectable range and has lingering fire damage. As with the other two kingdoms from this period, it looks like the devs leaned on historical sources as well. In both the contemporary record of the Three Kingdoms, as well as the much later romance of the Three Kingdoms, Wu was very known for its frequent use of fire attacks and repeating such fire attacks in its very headstrong offensives. To such a degree, it almost became a meme even back then on how much they spam this attack strategy. Nonetheless, when these attacks do work, the results are often quite spectacular, such as in the famous Battle of Red Cliffs. And just to push their ships a little over the edge as well, Wu naval ships, their Luochuan, are actually able to fire multiple projectiles and have those projectiles do lingering fire damage in an area. So if you like the idea of Vikings with napalm, Wu is definitely the faction that you're going to like. And there you have it, a quick summary of the new 5 factions that were going to be introduced this patch. I would like to take the time to talk about some of the historical elements before we leave as well. Now, one of the interesting replacement unit for the Knight line for the Three Kingdoms faction is a cavalry called the Heiguang Cavalry. The unit is very distinctive because the silhouette actually shows that it has a bunch of back pennants and back flags, similar to that of Japanese sashimono, which are the back flags used by the Ashigarus, the samurais, as well as those that's slightly reminiscent of a Polish winged hussar. Historically, these are called Beiyu, which literally means back feathers. And they were mentioned in the records of the period, and certain units were designated by the specific colors which their feathers are marked with. Units with back feathers were mentioned in records as far back as the Warring States period. However, though, during this period, the construction of the back feathers was probably in a variety of shapes. On my part, I think it's just neat that such a unit could be represented in Age of Empires 2. Before I leave, a note of thanks on my part. This is going to really show my age, but I started playing this game all the way back in the 90s. And like so many of those things from the good old days, after the initial expansion and then just the lack of support after, Age of Empires just become one of those things that kind of receded in the rear view mirror. It's just one of those things you put away when you become an adult. That is until the Forgotten team picked it up again and truly give it the second life that we really needed, and have it be constantly updated so it becomes a living presence in our lives again. And I would count myself amongst a generation of nerds might actually brag that they learned history from Age of Empires. Part of the gangsta nerd street cred back then. Not only that, but I remember a time where the Chinese civilization does not even have block printing, which historically they invented, but it's not featured in the civilization yet. And most of the OG cutscenes for a lot of the campaigns are just so cheesily made, but endearingly so. And thankfully, because of content creator that keeps cover this game, and from the Forgotten team that keeps releasing new content, it really makes you want to connect back into that world you kind of put away once you become an adult. This game gets to not be one of those things that's receded in the rear view mirror. So that now it's still with us as a living presence that's constantly being developed, constantly being tweaked, and constantly with new content coming out. Ironically, the empires are not forgotten. And unlike all of those other things that were let die, with new content that's keep coming out, you're still excited about the tomorrow of this game. And to you, fresh listener, if you just discovered me from this video alone, know that I have been writing about Chinese military history for quite a long time, at least 15 years now. So if you're interested to talk about Chinese military history, feel free to come to my Discord. It's a very friendly and free-form space where we could talk about all sorts of stuff from history all the way to perhaps fantasy army building. If you're interested in building an East Asian coded faction or a Chinese inspired faction and army, I'll be happy to go over those with you as well, just for fun. Kind of bring this back full circle again. Because of my experience in game design and character design and concept art, I'll be happy to go over details if you have a character created that is Chinese inspired or East Asian coded and give you historical based pointers in those areas as well. What's more, beyond just this age of medieval Chinese history, I also covered a variety of topics, including from the very beginning of Chinese literary history, from the Mandates of Heaven's War between the Shang Dynasty and the Zhou Dynasty, all the way to the Spring and Autumn's era and the ensuing Warring States era. Each article usually comes with hundreds of illustrations and references images that really spruce up the feeling of that age. If you're interested in what I'm doing and also likes what I do on my blog, definitely feel free to support me on Patreon. And with all of that said, all I can say is stay excited. Stay excited until the new patch release, and I'll be right here waiting with you.